Hello and welcome to Cool Guy 7 Tech. In this video, I'll be ranking mobile Linux devices in a tier list. What exactly is Linux for mobile? You may know of the Linux kernel of operating systems, such as Ubuntu, Arch Linux, etc., which many advanced users use on their desktops and laptops, etc., for a more improved experience. But there are some Linux ports versions for mobile. So as you can see here, Ubuntu Touch is one popular example, a touch-friendly, made-for-mobile version of the Ubuntu distribution. And some phone brands, like PinePhone, Vala, Librem is not on here, Purism, they make phones specifically for Linux. So the PinePhone will ship with Ubuntu Touch installed. There are also some other Linux mobile distributions like Mobian, which is a Debian port for mobile, and Postmarket OS, which is I think an Alpine port for mobile. Those have different configurations and stuff. Maybe worth looking into if you want Linux on a mobile device. And then there are some phone brands like Google and OnePlus that they make phones, regular phones, but happens to be, even though they ship with Android, you can, through some modifications, install Ubuntu Touch and other mobile distributions on them. You could do this on the Fairphone 5, the Pixel 3a, the OnePlus 6T, and more. And there are also some tablets made for mobile Linux distributions, like the Librem 11 and the PineTab 2. And these tablets support these distributions, mobile-like distribution, I guess, I think. Anyways, there are also some devices like the Microsoft Surface laptop tablet and the Minusforum V3, and these devices typically may come with the Windows installed, but you can actually, of course, change Windows to Linux, as with any laptop. So there you go, Linux tablet. So in this video, I'll be ranking all of these devices, starting with the Fairphone 5, and I'll be showing you the specs like this on some websites. The Fairphone 5, for around $800, a bit pricey compared to some other phones on this list. Released in 2023. This is a very interesting phone because it's modular, so you could take the screen out and replace it with a different one. Take the battery out, replace it with a different one if anything's not working. Not really meant for modification, like putting in a better battery or a better screen, just for replacing it if it stops working. So, not that, I don't see it being that useful. It could be useful maybe, but by then you just get a new phone anyway. So, IP55 rating, OLED display with 90 Hz refresh rate and only 880 nits peak brightness, so not that much compared to modern phones. 1200p resolution, that's pretty standard. It has a Qualcomm chipset. Storage is not that good when it comes to RAM. 128 gigs of storage or 256 with 6 gigs of RAM, very little, or 8 gigs of RAM, that's like standard-ish. Could be much better. 50 megapixel cameras, and it just seems like, for what you're getting for $800, a bit expensive compared to some other phones here, like this next device I'll be talking about, the Pixel 3a, for like only like 100-200 bucks. This seems too expensive. I'm gonna have to put this in D tier. Maybe I'll move it to F later. The Google Pixel 3a. This phone is a pretty old phone, released in 2019. OLED display. It does only cost like $100 or $200 here, $171. Also has an OLED display with 1080p. This also has very little RAM. A lot of these devices have very little RAM, so 4 gigs of RAM will actually be pretty standard. So I guess the Fairphone 5 is not that bad. Very little storage. It's just too expensive. Very little storage. 12 megapixel cameras, 8 megapixel selfie camera. Just seems like a pretty whatever phone. Now for the price, it might seem like a great budget option. The only thing is, there are better ones on here, so namely the OnePlus phones. So seems like a pretty good option. I'll put it in B tier. Next we have the OnePlus Nord N10. So this phone, released in 2020, has an LCD IPS display, so it's not OLED. So, oh, I forgot to mention the battery on the Pixel, 3,000 milliamp hours. This one's 4,300 with 30-watt charging, 90 Hz refresh rate, and also 1080p. 128 gigs of storage with 6 gigs of RAM. This does seem like, yes, around the same price as Google Pixel 3a. If you don't care about the LCD, this is overall better than the Pixel 3a. I'm gonna have to put it in same B tier. Next we have Xiaomi's Poco X3 phone here. So 5,000, around 5,000, 5160 milliamp hour battery, 64 megapixel cameras, which 4K, like all the other ones. It does also have an LCD display, 120 Hz this time, which is nice. Yeah, 450 nits brightness, also 1080p, 20 megapixel selfie camera, 64 main camera, so 6 gigs or 8 RAMs, or 8 gigs of RAM, with 128 gigs of storage. Also seems like a pretty good choice if you want something cheapish. The phone itself with its OS should be fine, yeah. Next phone on this list is also from Xiaomi, their Redmi Note 9 Pro. So this is a Xiaomi Redmi Note 9 Pro. Also released in 2020, with also an LCD IPS display, 16 megapixel front camera, 64 megapixel selfie camera, that is, same thing. 64 megapixel main cameras, 4 to 8 gigs of RAM depending on which one you get. Also 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Good screen. In fact, it's LCD. 30-watt charging. USB-C 2.0, not 3.0. I think some of the other ones were also like that though. Pretty good phone, I'll say B tier also. And also from Xiaomi, we have the Redmi 9. So, oh, hold on. So the Xiaomi Redmi 9, another phone released in 2020. This one has 3 to 6 gigs RAM, so not as good as the Redmi Note 9. 5,000 mAh battery, 13 megapixel camera, not so great. Also 1080p. This one does not seem as good as the other ones. It is a little cheaper at seems varying price, like $100, $50 to $100. So I'll put it in. I would put it in C tier, but since you could get in, yeah, C tier. Next phone, this is an interesting one. The Asus Zenfone Max Pro M2. The M1 was listed on the website, but I didn't feel like putting it in here since the M2 also works with Linux. In fact, it has, I'm pretty sure, an x86 processor instead of a... No, Snapdragon. Not sure. 3 to 6 gigs RAM and 5,000 mAh battery. Which is discontinued, so you'll have to find from... Yeah, on Amazon. Have to find some different places to buy it. So yeah, gonna be around like $100 probably also. IPS LCD display, Gorilla Glass 6, and again micro USB 2.0, so that's not very good. Not gonna have your typical USB-C, so that might be a little bit of a problem. And I'm sorry, it does not look. It's a little old. I'm gonna have to say, and since discontinued, hard to find. I'm gonna say C tier. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. C tier. Next, we have the Volaphone Quintus. Not listed on other websites, so you can see here. These are all the stuff it has. So for around, I'm pretty sure it's a bit more on the expensive side, but this is one of the natively supported phones, so this one will ship with Ubuntu Touch if you are into that. If you don't want to go through setting up yourself. But it is more expensive at, I'm pretty sure, around $500 maybe, 600, 700 maybe. So it has all this. It does not have fingerprint reader. It has has 8 gigs RAM and 256 gigs of storage. 5G. So this phone, if you like, if you really want the Ubuntu Touch experience, then and out of the box, that's great. But for me, uh, I'm gonna go in C tier. This next phone is not so good. The Sony Xperia X, right here. This is a very old phone from 2016, also discontinued. Also IPS display. You can see it ships with Android 6, like you get it once you touch anyway, but the camera, 23 megapixels, 13 megapixel selfie camera, that you can see, not a very pretty selfie camera. Also using a micro USB 2.0. So this phone seems a little outdated, so I'm gonna say D tier. Next phone on the list is the Samsung Galaxy S7, the Exynos version. So this phone is also a little outdated, released in 2016, but if you really want a Samsung phone for some reason, here it is. It does have a Super AMOLED, so that's nice if you don't want that LCD. And IP68 rating, which is nice. It does have. It is around $300. $100. I'm sorry. 100, 200. It should be around the same price as all the other ones. Corning Gorilla Glass 4. Also using a micro USB 2.0. Also a little outdated, so I'm gonna say also goes in C tier. And then you got the Meizu Pro 5. So this phone is also very old. It released in 2015. Does have AMOLED, which is nice, and USB-C. So that's very nice. Has both of those. Not like USB-C 2.0, 3.0, but still has USB-C. So that's still convenient. 3 or 4 gigs of RAM, not so good. 3,000 milliampere battery, also not so good. Outdated, but good. Like, I'm also gonna put it in C tier. And also, actually, I think oh yeah, I'm gonna have to move one of these up to A tier because not so many so far, but we'll get some with the tablets. And the next phone, the PinePhone Pro. May have heard of this one. It is like also pretty expensive at like $500 compared to the other like 100 these others are. Again, these are all like Linux phones and these are very old, so they're not going to be like your typical $800,000 dollars that you'd expect from a modern phone. Since these are either like old or like random and like unheard of. Got a 1440 by 720, so 720p display, not very nice. And like this 18 to 9 ratio. IPS display, 128 gigs of storage, so it is extendable up to 2 terabytes. USB-C, 2800 milliampere battery, not great. This is, well, as famous as this phone may be, I don't think it's so good, so I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give this B tier, whatever, I'm gonna give it D tier as well, actually, yeah. Actually, honestly, the 720p, even though it ships with Ubuntu Touch, not worth it. If you want a phone that ships with Ubuntu Touch, get a Volaphone Quintus. Is F tier. Alright, next device. The Librem 5 from Purism. This has got better specs than the Pine phone. 3 gigs of RAM, 4,500 milliampere battery, ships with Ubuntu Touch. Actually, wait, no, it has Pure OS, which is like their like version. Now, some people have not really loved this phone so much, and not such good things about it. The screen's 720p as well. This one's also, I'm gonna say, D tier. A bit more expensive than this. Maybe we're also F tier, but no, it'll be nice. And now we go from terrible, even though it ships with Ubuntu Touch, to amazing, even though it does not ship with Ubuntu Touch. So the OnePlus 6T is an amazing option. Even though it released in 2018, it has an optic AMOLED display, so that's nice. You don't have that typical IPS. USB-C 2.0, that's pretty good. And then you have the 3,700 milliampere battery, not great. 6 to 8 gigs of RAM, that's pretty good. So 256 gigs with storage with 8 gigs of RAM. This is giving you all the specs from like the Fairphone, just even some better maybe. But for a much cheaper price, you could get this phone for only like $100, $200. 20-watt charging, 1080p resolution. It's a pretty good phone, so I'm gonna give it A tier. And next, this one's not listed on the official Ubuntu Touch website. I will link in the description, place where you could get it. As you can see, unlike this little drop, it's got a very nice screen. You can not even see the camera, front-facing camera, which is nice. Released in 2019, so I'll link in the description how you could get Ubuntu Touch on this. It's got USB-C 3.1, which is the one that's used nowadays, so that's very nice. 4,000 milliampere battery, 30-watt charging, also like $200. Seems like an amazing choice. 1440p, unlike the other 1080p from the other phones. Also AMOLED, 90 hertz. That's fine. So these specs on here are quite good for a Linux phone. The OnePlus 7 Pro, I'm gonna have to give it an S tier rating. And then you have the OnePlus 8T, which is, you could see the camera again, which is not as nice of a perk, but, still, like a regular phone. Nice in the corner. 4,500 milliampere battery, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. That's finally a normal amount of RAM. 48 megapixel camera, also 1080p, not 1440p like the previous one. So 128 gigs of storage or 256. Also USB-C 3.1. Got fine specs like the other one I just showed. Not bad. Good processor. Snapdragon. So this is also a pretty good phone. I'm gonna have to give it S. Well, it might be a little more difficult to run distributions on here. I already get the 7 Pro, gorgeous 7 Pro anyway. I'll give it S tier, but the 7 Pro is a good enough option already. And now we get to the Linux tablets. So these are, in my opinion, have much more potential than these. You'll notice none of these got SS, obviously. And so the thing about Linux on phones is that, why should you get one? Android works fine. Linux on computers and tablets works fine. There's really not such a need to try this. It's more of like an experimental thing, though. If you do, here's your tier list. Linux tablets, on the other hand, give you a bigger display and more power. A lot of these are laptop processors. So these have a lot of potential. So without further ado, the Lenovo Tab M10 HD 2nd Gen. You get this with Wi-Fi or LTE version. It's a long name, but the Lenovo Tab M10 HD Gen 2. Released in 2020. Also has an IPS display, which is not great. 800p resolution. USB-C 2.0. USB-C 2.0, which is nice. Not as nice as the 3.1 of the other ones, those phones. 5,000 milliampere battery. About like $100, $200 price. Not great specs. I'm gonna put it in C tier. The next device, you have the Vala tablet. You could see the specs here. Around like also similar price, like $400, $500. This is basically the tablet version of the Vala phone Quintus, so everything I said there applies here. Decent specs. You haven't seen them here. So I'm gonna give it C tier as well. And here's the thing. Actually, I'll give it B tier, just because it's big and it comes with Ubuntu Touch pre-installed. Pretty good option. And the next we have the Pine Tab 2. So this is from the company that made the Pine phone. The Pine Tab. It comes with 8 gigs or 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of a storage, around like $300 to $200, $200 to $300. IPS display, 800p, also not very nice. 5 megapixel main camera and 2 megapixel selfie camera, not great. Does have a headphone jack, which is nice. One USB 3.0, USB-C. It's got USB-C 2.0. 6,000 milliamp hour battery is very nice. Seems like a pretty good option. I'm gonna give it B tier as well. And now the next device would be the Librem 11. So the Purism Librem 11 got 8 gigs of RAM, terabyte storage. It's a lot of storage, not so much RAM. Has an OLED display with 1600p. That's very nice. Great hardware, beautiful hardware. Yeah. Detachable keyboard. So it's got USB-C 3.1. So this is a much more modern device. I'd say it's pretty good. I'll give it A tier as well. Maybe B, but I'll be nice and give it A. And then we have the Juno Tab 3. So, actually not here, since there are so many alternatives. But it is a good B tier. And then you have the Starlight 5 with a 12.5 inch diagonal LED, so IPS display with 1440p. It's nice. 2160 by 1440, more of a modern thing. Great storage, 512, configurable up to 2 terabytes. Good memory, graphics, USB-C 3.2, good cameras, and so overall, by the way, I forgot to mention, this is, it comes with Linux, just regular Linux. Seems like a great option. I'll give it A tier as well. Next we have the Fide Tab Duo, which is this. So as you can see, it has 1600p resolution, USB-C 3.1. It is an IPS display. 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. 5 megapixel front camera. Also seems like a pretty good choice. I'll give it also A tier. And now we have the Microsoft Surface laptop. Yes, you could put Linux on a Microsoft device. So I'd say it, it has a Snapdragon X Elite and stuff. It has 16 gigs of memory, RAM, and 256 gigs of storage. USB-C. Great battery. You can get it with LCD or OLED, AMOLED, OLED. So it seems like a pretty great option. I'll give it a B tier. And then you have Dell's and Lenovo have a bunch of detachable laptops. So Dell has their Latitude 7350 detachable with an Intel Core processor, 1920p display. That's a great resolution. It is IPS though, which I guess is fine. Pretty expensive though, $1,700 for the specs you're getting here. Not so great for the price anyway. If it was cheaper, I would give it like a S or A tier, but I'm gonna give it B tier. And then Lenovo's take on that. Their detachable ThinkPad X2. And also has an Intel Core i7, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, 8 megapixel back camera, 5 megapixel selfie camera, USB-C, and this is $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, $1,800, around $1,600. So this is a better option than the Dell. Is it worth it? Not really. I'll give it B tier. And now we have two amazing options, and don't worry, this SS tier will get used. So the Minisforum V3. It's actually $800, despite what it may say here on this website. $800. Has an AMD so AMD, works great with Linux. AMD Ryzen 7 8840, that's just an AMD chip, that's pretty good. 2.5K 165Hz display, got your modern USBs, 32 gigs of RAM, and 1 terabyte of storage. With speakers, has built-in fans, and for $800, I know this is more expensive compared to other options on the list, but I'm sorry, where was this? But this is a really great option for a tablet, and I'm gonna give it SS tier. And last but not least, the Asus ROG Flow Z13. So you got the 2025 version. It's not listed here. It says 2023, but yeah. So if you want to pay a little bit more for the 2025 one, has an amazing AMD Ryzen AI Max 395 Plus. That is a weird name for a great processor. This is basically the most powerful processor in any laptop, forget tablet. Good battery, even unplugged, it's amazing. It could be used as a handheld, most powerful handheld if you were to attach some controllers on here. And guess what? You can install Linux on it. And it's detachable, great performance. It is $2,000, but if you want to install Bazite or Nobara and get the most out of this, pretty good device. I'll give it S tier. So with that said, Minisforum V3, best device on this list. So what I would recommend, don't get any of these D or F tiers. If you want a tablet that comes with a Ubuntu Touch specifically, I guess the Vala tablet. But if you want the best tablet for Linux in general, just use Linux on it. You could get GNOME with a bunch of extensions. Cosmic looks really nice. That's what I'm using now. As you can see. Actually, wait, no, you can't see. This Miniform v3 here is the best option for any mobile Linux device in my opinion. Best Linux phone, I'd say the OnePlus 7 Pro and 8T. I'd say the OnePlus 7 Pro, best phone. If you want something that comes with Linux installed, Valve Phone Quintus. And so this is my thought on mobile Linux devices. Now, the OS, as of right now, the options, they're pretty good, but not great software experience. But I think Cosmic, the desktop environment currently developed by System 76, the creator of Pop! OS, which I'm using right now, has a lot of potential for mobile devices. It just looks so mobile friendly and so modifiable that I'm sure something wonderful can be created out of it. So, that being said, here's your tier list.